30 minutes. I realize we haven't been setting the expectation very well. This is a 30-minute weekly that we're doing with me, Mark Henderson Leary, and my friend
Brad Freyer. And Mark's excited to be back again this week. You know, we've had a couple of really good conversations, and I'm excited to jump off into a topic this week with you. You know, it's interesting because, we're trying to keep the topics relevant. We're trying to keep the topics based on things that we are experiencing with our clients in real time. And so, you mentioned something at the end of the last session that seemed like a very relevant topic. It's one that I've got a lot of clients coming to me talking about. In fact, I had it yesterday. I had a coaching call yesterday regarding it. Interrupting people, ghosting people, prospecting in today's time. I mean, did I summarize that correctly from last week?
Yeah, and so you and I kind of leading up to this conversation, my concern I didn't voice well was that selling is a business activity that involves the whole business. And I want to make sure that when we're looking at growing the business, relevant conversations with clients to get good customers with good products is like I said, it's a whole business. It's a strategic, thoughtful activity as the whole business, all the way down to the very basic tactics of what the sales rep does. And so whenever we have these conversations, I want to make sure we're zooming in and zooming out. Is this going to like the tactic of what does someone say, including a visionary entrepreneur who might be on the phone with a prospect or a customer? How do they think about the selling? And then zooming way back out to make sure strategically this all is in the right context, because right now you've got both. You've got to really know if your business is in the right place at the right time, and you have to be very tactically correct. I think is that fair in your estimate, Brad?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but I think with what's happened over the last 8 months, we've had a lot of people who are saying, my team isn't pivoting. My team's continuing to do the things they've always done because they're in comfort zones, or that's the only way they know how to do it. But times are changing, and what worked 8 months ago isn't working now. I mean, hell, there's things we can't even do right now that used to be the driving force behind a lot of people's business 8 months ago. So yeah, I mean, and it affects front to back the business, everything from the leadership down to the people shipping the parts, because if you're not selling, if you're not generating new opportunity, your company will die.
So my perspective is always going to be from the visionary entrepreneur, even if it sounds very sales tactical, because I do think the visionary entrepreneur, the leaders of the company, are especially right now, are heavily involved in the sales process, and they do a lot of the selling. So let's take it back to the original question from last week, which was, don't ask if now's is a good time.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny, yeah, because I mean, I've actually, one of our philosophies is to, the typical questions at the beginning of a sales call, at the beginning of a cold call, at the beginning of a referral call, that tempo that we set from the very beginning tends to elicit the response we're going to get, right? And there's those triggered responses that we have. Think about the calls that you get from vendors, from prospectors, cold callers that are calling you. How do most calls start? First of all, they mispronounce your name, so that's the first hint. But then they say something like, hey, Mr. Leary, how are you today? Or, hey, Mr. Leary, is now a good time? And they say it with a lot of enthusiasm, but we've learned our triggered responses to those questions, right? How are you today? Oh, God, I got to start thinking of a way to get rid of this telemarketer. Hey, did I catch you at a good time? Right. No, not really. And so
that's the thing that gets it. I get where you're going with this. And my friction is, you're saying break the pattern. Like, don't put yourself into that irritating sales guy seat. And so I get that. At the same time, how do you handle what if it's not a bad time? What if this guy's getting really irritated? What if he really was thinking a critical call was coming in and he picked it up just reflexively and you're really causing him some stress? How do you handle that?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to happen. I mean, you're going to call people who are in the middle of something pressing, that are having a bad day, that are dealing with stuff that is unrelated to you, but they're going to take it out on you because you're the one that's there now. But that shouldn't affect whether or not you make the dials, because that's going to happen, right? But I mean, thinking about the tempo, the tonality, and the initial message on not overimposing on someone, right? So if I call you and I say, "Hey, Mark, I'm guessing I caught you at a bad time."
Yeah.
Right. So that immediately breaks down a little bit of the defensiveness because you identify the fact that I recognize that I'm stepping on your morning, right? So I say, "Hey, Mark, I'm guessing I caught you at a bad time," and you're going to say one of two things. What are you going to say?
Yes or no?
Right. I mean, and either way, the beauty of it is either way, my response, my next step is going to be the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if you say, "Yeah, you caught me at a bad time," hey, I apologize. Hey, would it make sense if I just took 45 seconds, explain to you why I'm calling? If you want to talk further, great. If not, no harm, no foul. Right. And so I'm immediately empathizing and respecting your time, and letting you know that I don't want to waste it. I want to get to the point, and if it's good, great. If not, no worries.
So I love the prospecting aspect because that's the hardest piece of that. But then you talk about ghosting. Let's take this one step further to make it hopefully more real for everybody.
Yeah.
This isn't the first call. This isn't the prospect call. This is the chase call.
Yeah.
I just gave it the name chase call. I don't know. You don't want it to be the chase call. It's like, hey, we were supposed to talk yesterday.
The next step.
The next step, especially when it gets a little bit sticky or not sticky enough, depending on how you're viewing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, hey, well, I get the person who's been kind of slippery for the last 2 days, and then you sense that. What do you do with? So I'm really getting a lot out of this in terms of it's about breaking the pattern, and you didn't have to listen.
Yeah.
And if you say like, hey, thanks for taking my call, I'd love to just get to that next step we talked about moving forward, and then you've got this friction, something they're like, well, yeah, and you feel like a slow no coming on or something, or something, or hey, you know what, we do need to talk about this, but I got so and so in my office. What are you doing there?
Well, so it's interesting because, and I'll ask you your opinion on this as well. When so I spent the last 4.5 years. I spent 13 years in Sandler. Spent the last 4.5 years running a manufacturing company, and then I just got back involved in Sandler 5 months ago, in the middle of the pandemic. And so I'm experiencing things this time around that I've never experienced before, where, I've got a meeting with the president, owner, CEO, and we've got it on the calendar for a Zoom meeting at 2:00 on Thursday. And we've had a good conversation, or even 2 or 3. And then we get to that next pivotal step. And 5 minutes before, I get an email that says, "Hey, we need to push this." Or I even had one where the leader of the company, we had 3 people that were going to be on the Zoom call, myself, a sales manager, and the owner of the company. And myself and the sales manager get on the Zoom, and the owner of the company is nowhere to be found. He ghosted both of us. And we're like, "Where is he?" He's like, "I don't know." So my question to you is, have you noticed more ghosting in the COVID virtual era than you ever experienced prior to? Because this is something that was relatively new to me. Now, granted, we've worked through it, but it was something that it didn't happen much pre-virtual selling.
I don't know. I don't know, because I think what I see firsthand is in my conversations, I personally am very binary.
Mm-hmm.
I have in my past lives of being in the sales process of products that are kind of like, maybe not this quarter, maybe not this month, and all this kind of drawn out pipeline. I'm not in that mode. I'm like, I wanted a yes or a no. And if I'm not hearing a yes quick enough, I'm going to take no. And so I'm starting to be the one to say like, okay, go.
Well,
I have the bandwidth for this.
But even between initial conversation, right, where you take a suspect and you turn them into a prospect, from the time they become a prospect until they sign on the dotted line, that's not I know in my world it's not, and I don't think in your world it is either, a one-call close. Right?
No, but it's 3.
Okay, but it's 3. So what happens in that middle call if you have a meeting scheduled to take the deeper dive and to talk specifics and to really dive deeper into pain, budget decision, whatever your qualifying process might look like, and they ghost you, or they ask for a reschedule at the last minute, or they keep, hey, look, we need to put it out. Oh, we need to put it out. Oh, we need to put it out. I mean, is that happening at all in your world?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
I mean, the law of small numbers is certainly confounding, and like you said, there's so many variables. But
Yeah.
I think that's going up.
Well, the frustrating thing is, at least for me, is that once that happens, I begin to tell myself all these stories, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
start
exactly.
having the mental gymnastics of, God, well, are they not interested anymore? Did I do something wrong? Are they exploring other options? Is there some, and so you start telling yourself all these stories. So a couple of things that I've started doing to add to my process. The biggest thing is I've started at the end of creating a next step. I've added a what we call a post sell. You're familiar with post
Mhm.
sell, Mark, from being in Sandler.
Yeah, yeah,
But
this is a good one. This is a good review, especially
yeah,
even
but
for me.
perfect. The post sell is a confirmation that it's going to stick, right? So if you and I are having a conversation, and maybe we finished our first 60-minute call, and we had a good conversation. We uncovered some pain. We shared a little bit of what we do, what you do, and it's a good conversation. We agree to a next step. And so we look at our calendars and we see that next Tuesday at 10 a.m. is going to be our next step, and we're going to have an hour meeting. And so what I do at that point, I say, hey, Mark, I'm going to send you a calendar invite for 10 a.m. For 90 minutes. Do me a favor, click accept when you receive that, and that will confirm our appointment. Fair? And Mark says,
That sounds fair.
great. Hey, Mark, is there any reason to believe that next Tuesday at 10 o'clock is not going to be a good time, or you think that you'll need to reschedule that for any reason?
It's a good question. Probably, possibly. There might be. There might be. It's
Okay.
kind of a crazy world.
All right. Well, if there's a chance that that's going to happen, why don't we look for a different day and time? Let's try to find a time, because I know your time's valuable, so is mine. Let's find a time that has the least amount of risk for being punted or rescheduled. Right. So that's the post sale, right? It's just it just adds more stickiness to the appointment. It makes it more real. And I just want you to do what you say you're going to do. As a
Yeah.
salesperson, I just want my prospect. Look, I'm going to be there. I've committed to it. I'm going to put it on my calendar. I just want you to do the same. And
So
so
I'm thinking that as you describe this, I see this very clear, firm, there's activities and commitment in the next step. Like we have
right.
some commitment to that, but I see a trend in the back of this. Is disposable communication pieces. It's you talk about the meetings like getting rescheduled at the 5 minutes before a Zoom meeting. That's a different commitment, a Zoom meeting, than you meeting me in my office. Like
Totally.
so the disposability. It's just a Zoom meeting. Just find another 30 minutes.
Exactly right. It's so easy for
And
people, because look, if you're sitting in your office and you're working on 15 things, and that little notification pops up that says, hey, you've got a Zoom meeting with Brad Freyer in 5 minutes. If I'm in the middle of something and I see the Zoom meeting pop up, it's so easy for me to click it and just go, hey, can we move this out?
yeah,
Because I'm not driving anywhere. You're not coming to my office. It's so much less commitment to these meetings. So you have to sell the meeting itself harder so that it has more stickiness and
so
more
that makes a lot of
sense
sense.
of commitment.
Because
Yeah.
people are talking about how one of the benefits of having Zoom meetings for selling and for other things is you can have twice as many of them. And so you can,
Yeah.
instead of having a phone call or driving, like phone call is quick and disposable. A drive across town is expensive and time consuming and highly committed. And in the middle,
right.
you've got this in-person Zoom meeting, and you can stack them back to back, and you can
right.
have all these conversations. But then I think it's positive, and it also lowers the value because they're easier to do.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah. I
then
mean,
flows
I
into
know. Yeah. Go
well,
ahead.
my biggest, what I'm finding now is casual interaction. And so I'm hearing a trend around formal interaction, what you're saying. Because what I'll do is, my clients are in the close circle. Like they're closer to friends than they are to, strangers. And so if they have a question, or if I have a question, I just text them, and it's this rapid connection. But then which is fine and great when things are clear. If they get unclear, then the ghosting starts to happen. It's like, hey, are you okay out there? And that's actually one of my go-to lines. It's like, we were going to talk today, and we're not talking today. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Everything okay? And I usually get a response to that one.
Well, are you talking about clients or are you talking about prospects?
Well, both actually. Actually, that's a good
Okay.
point. Good question. Because I do have clients who get into sticky times, and they And I guess my world is pretty unique, and not everybody on this call is we probably should move away from my paradigm, because my clients are at a super high level of trust, and sometimes they get themselves into spots that they're not super proud of, and they don't want to sort of admit that.
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
they're too busy, they're embarrassingly busy. They've the stuff they know they need to do, and they haven't done it. And so I start to be kind of the principal or the teacher who's checking their homework, and then they do kind of ghost on that. And so the dynamic is different.
But with clients, I mean, whether it's in my business, your business, or the manufacturing company that I'm still involved in, when they're clients, you have permission to hold them accountable, right? There's a equal business stature that's established when they're a client. If it's my best client over at the manufacturing company and I ask them for a piece of information and they don't send it to me, or they miss the call, I can immediately send them an email or a text and say, hey, I need this information before we can do anything else. It's now in your court, right? I can be more assertive with them because we're on the level playing field. When there's still a prospect early in the cycle, sometimes we're trying to balance out that equal business stature, right? We're trying to figure out, okay, can I be curt with them, or do I have to still play soft? Or that's the difficult dynamic, because I want to hold everybody accountable for everything. When someone misses my call, I'm just like, well, guess you're not interested. I'll check you off the list, but I know that's not reality.
Yeah. Well, I do the same thing. I'm glad you said that, because I start to get like, well, then then F off. Like, wait. no one's winning in that scenario.
That's right.
But because I think my feelings, my truth is, don't tell anybody. But my feelings get hurt.
Hey, it happens to everybody. Even when you're on the top of the heap and things are going your way, when someone, especially something that you're excited about, or an opportunity that you got some energy on, whenever it doesn't go as you had hoped or doesn't go as you planned, it's you internalize it a little bit, right? It puts a dent in the armor. So
well, and I realized
very common.
Something as simple as missing an appointment has to. The well goes deep, because it's you and I have a bond. Like, Brad, we're going to talk tomorrow. Yeah, what time? 3, cool. 3 comes and goes. Like, you just got stood up. That's whoa. Like, somebody's lying to somebody else. Something bad happened here. If you're not hurt or something major, then like you just completely said, I don't matter.
Yeah.
And so, and that's a real cross contamination of like personal ethics and business reality. So it's interesting.
Yeah. But what's so interesting is what you just said, right? Your first reaction when it's somebody that you have a relationship with and that you have trust and respect for, if someone stands you up in that situation, your brain immediately goes to, God, I hope they're okay.
Yeah.
Right? When it's a prospect and they stand you up, your brain doesn't go to, God, I hope they're okay. Your brain goes to, I wonder if they're still a prospect. I wonder if they found somebody.
Damn, did my bonus just go down? Shoot.
Yeah. So it does. I mean, it plays with our mind, but that's why having consistent process is so important. Rather than getting sucked into the moment, having a step-by-step process so that whenever someone does ghost you, what your next action is. You don't worry about, okay, God, what do I do now? What do I say? Do I call? Do I text? Do I email? If you have a predictable process to either your sales or whatever it might be, that takes the emotion out of it, right? So if you're my prospect and I did a good job of setting the appointment, right? Hey, Mark, 10 o'clock on Tuesday, I'm going to send you a calendar invite. Do me a favor, click accept, and that'll confirm our appointment. Hey, by the way, is there any reason that you think we'll need to reschedule or cancel that at that day and time? And all I want to hear is either, no, we're good, right? Because he's putting more commitment into it whenever I ask that follow-up question. Now, if that meeting comes and goes and you don't show up, rather than panicking, what's your next step? What do you do?
Are you asking? Because I'm hoping you're going to tell me.
I will, but I was just curious if you had an opinion before we.
Well, so I'm going to work. I love this. Everybody thinks that like when we're doing these things that this is scripted, and I've done hours and hours and hours of podcasts and interviews and discussions. And I'll tell you that the secret is that I'm sitting here learning. And so what I'm thinking about here is how I think of the law of small numbers. I've even advised people to this. If you're doing lots of prospecting, then if you have lots of little customers and clients you're going after, you have to have a bulletproof process, because you can't really think. There's no time for thinking. It's too much repetition. As you get closer and closer to like monolithic clients, like this is the one contract that will float the company for the next 5 years, then repeatable process isn't your thing. It's extremely precise execution at every inch of the game, and in everything in between. So in my world, I'm thinking about how often I think of it as law of small numbers. Everybody's a little bit unique, and I have a process, but I have a little bit of judgment that floats into that, and my judgment oftentimes goes to these kind of wonky places that we've described, like, is it me? Is it whatever? But my default, when I'm lost, I do go back to, let's just make sure they're okay. So if I can't figure out what to do, I will say, "Are you okay?" And I mean that. And everything okay over there? And I get a response from that almost every time. And they'll usually tell me exactly where they're at. Maybe they'll be really, really blunt with kind of where they're at in the process. Or they'll say, "Sorry, I just got busy. Let's talk."
Yeah, see, I love that. And that's why I asked, because that's a great response. And the number one rule is, right, if it's working, keep doing it.
Yeah.
So if people ghost you, if people miss the appointments, and your typical triggered response is, "Hey, we had a 10 o'clock meeting. I'm sorry that it didn't happen. Just wanted to make sure that you're okay," or whatever verbiage you might use. Maybe yours is just, "Hey, are you okay?" ?
Yeah. Are you okay? Everything okay? Yeah. I kind of tweak it, but what I've found is like simpler and shorter, the better.
Totally agree with that.
That's my go-to on that. I don't need the business context. It's personal at that point. And that really works for me.
Hey, that's a good point, right? I think that's a nice adder. Take the business context out of it. It's personal at that point, because as we discussed just a minute ago, if it's a client and they miss your call, your brain immediately goes to, "Are you okay?" So why shouldn't we be thinking the same thing with prospects or suspects?
Yeah, so as a visionary entrepreneur, it's probably that place a lot. I mean, a lot of peer-to-peer equal business stature conversations. It's expected. If you're the president of your company or the CEO of the company, you're talking to the president, CEO of the company. It's very reasonable that you have some sort of connection as identity just beyond relationship. Like, hey, we're fellow entrepreneurs. Hey, we have similar problems. Hey, we have, similar family life dynamics. And so the ability to connect at that level is probably pretty accessible. The sales rep may have to work for that, may have to sort of get their mindset around.
See, and that's the problem, right? I talked to so many entrepreneurs. In fact, I had a conversation with one last week. And he said, I've hired 4 to 5 salespeople over the last 3 years, and they've all failed. And I said, why? And he said, because I take them under my wing and I show them how to do it the way that I do it, and they can't get there. They can't do what I do. And I said, well, yeah, because you've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. You started the business from scratch. You've learned through trial and error. You've touched the stove, your hand got burned. You won't do that again. You also have the innate ability, because you own the company, to be able to make a deal, Johnny, on the spot. You also know where your bottom line is. So you have intangibles that nobody else you ever hire will be able to have. But it doesn't mean that we can't teach a process consistent with how entrepreneurs and business owners sell, right? And so what we're doing with him is we're coming in behind him and pulling out a lot of the stuff that makes a entrepreneur such. I mean, the owner of the company, or the president, the CEO, the executives are always the best salespeople in the company, because they speak from experience, they speak with ownership, they have equal business stature, they believe in what they're selling, and they believe in the value of what they're selling. And so if we can harness some of those techniques and teach them to salespeople, they'll never be as good as the owner or the president of the company, but they'll be able to have a process similar to what the owner does, and we'll be able to put names to it, right? We'll be able to identify what those steps are. But that's the problem, is you can't, if you're an entrepreneur out there, and I'll speak to anybody listen, if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner and you're trying to get salespeople to sell like you, stop it. You're just going to get frustrated because they'll never be able to sell like you.
That's such a great point, and I think we probably could dig deeper into that because we've got 5 minutes before we're up against the half hour or the hour. And so I think that could be a good topic for next time, to really how to deconstruct the sale into process from the entrepreneur's perspective, especially right now. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are having to reassess and say, like, we got a new product, a new world, a new process that may need some real rethinking. And how do you evolve that in yourself? And then how do you package it rather, for replication to get in the hands of 1, 2, 3, or 300 reps. So that's something you can deconstruct. But I do think your point is right on track. We see this a lot, that a visionary entrepreneur selling has two things working against them in large terms. And one is a tremendous wealth of trick shots that you described. Like, you can, watch this, I can say this. And the sales rep, what was that? Where'd you pull that out of?
I've never heard that before. I like that one a lot.
And the second piece, that's I learned that from a friend. Like, don't sell at your best. If you're training your reps, don't pull out the trick shots, because they're going to be like, shoot, I can't do that. How did he do that?
That's awesome.
So you got to sell at B and C level in front of your sales reps. And the second piece is they've got the clout. They are the CEO. They just being in the room and they can do different stuff. Oh, sure. You want to do that? Yeah, we can do that. Oh, you want to, our shipments go out on Tuesday for you. We can make it on Wednesday. That's a totally different thing than the sales rep. Like, I don't know. I'm told it's Tuesday. Those are the days we ship, man.
That's right. Yeah. I love it. The trick shots. Oh my God. That's a good one. That's my light bulb for today. Yeah.
Man, I love it.
Owners have trick shots.
They do. And so sales managers, well, not sales managers, no. The top selling sales guy who got promoted to sales manager, which is usually a terrible sales manager. but
another topic for another. Yeah. I mean, the worst hiring mistakes that are made are taking a top producing salesperson and turn them into a sales manager.
Well, I think they're related. Because you've got, it's the trick shots problem again. What you need is someone who can describe and teach and enforce process. And instead, you got somebody who's like, watch this.
From the hip.
It's like, I can, it's Grant Cardone. Like, watch this. This guy, he told you no. He told you to fight. Watch this. I'm going to close him right now on the call. Here we go. You're an idiot if you don't sign up right now. Click. See, that's sales manager. No, that's not sales management. Like, you can't replicate that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in fact, that's another great topic. Why, and we'll add that one to the list. Why don't good salespeople make good sales managers? I mean, because you're doing two things to your business when you take a top producing salesperson and turn them into a sales manager. Number one is you're taking away your top producing salesperson, Oh, right. But also, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to great salespeople and they're so honored or excited about the idea of a promotion into becoming a leader, to becoming a manager. But then 6 months into it, they're like, God, Brad, this sucks. I went from worrying about myself every day to now I'm worrying about 12 people. I had a flexible schedule. I could come in late, leave early. As long as I hit my numbers, I was great. Now I'm coming in early, leaving late. People are calling me to make stuff happen. It is a pain. And then they hit that crossroad, right? Am I really committed to wanting to do this, or do I want to go back to sales? And they oftentimes end up leaving because they don't feel comfortable going back into sales in their existing company because they feel like they failed.
Yeah, and so you're describing that, and it's a great topic. Describing that from the salesperson's perspective, which makes sense. They're like, "Hey, I got promoted, and I hate my life, and I don't understand why." And then there is the leadership side. It's like I say, what you just took your highest producer. This guy was making $500,000 in commissions, and you put him into a job that, by all other descriptions, should only be worth $150,000. So you need to get your mindset around individual contributor. Is a separate animal that is maybe higher value to your organization than that sales manager. And so it looks upside down money-wise, but that's real. Like, the job is different. It needs a different person. And the right person for that sales management job is going to be fine with their $150,000, $200,000 sales, depending on the industry. I mean, maybe it's more than that, but the idea of an upside down commission or comp plan, the right person for that is going to be okay with that because they understand that they're not that individual contributor doing the magic that individual contributor is doing, bringing in $5, $6, $10 million in sales and taking home, $500,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're at time, brother.
So which one of those do we want to talk about next week? We want to talk about deconstructing the entrepreneurial sales model and figuring out why it's not transferable and what pieces can be, or do we want to talk about the sales manager into or leading salesperson into sales leadership?
Well, we should take a vote here in a minute, you and me. I'll vote and you vote. My personal feelings, I think appropriately for the time of year, but all the topics are really, I have a lot of energy around all of them, but I think given where the year's wrapping up and we're thinking about planning for 2021, I think it's a really wonderful time to do some reflection and see, what have we learned about our clients' journey and how might we need to change our sales process at a principal level, is it from entrepreneurial perspective, and how might that need to trickle into the rest of the sales organization, which could be part of the service organization. It could be you might be outside sales reps. It might be telemarketers. It might be any number of, it might be your techs, it might be your consultants. But a lot of the things you're learning at the principal level need to show up in your engagement throughout the organization.
So we're actually going to need to deconstruct that because you threw a whole in there. So over the next 7 days, we're going to deconstruct that and figure out what the hell that meant and what that topic is going to be. Because there's a lot of good stuff there. We just got to figure out what piece of it is. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I guess the reason I went into so much detail is because I want people who are hearing this to understand that this applies to you, even no matter what shape your organization is. It's somewhere at the leadership team level, you are looking at what you've learned in terms of how your customer buys and what they buy and why they buy, and that's going to have to flow into the organization regardless of what type of sales or consultative or engagement structure you've got.
That's fair.
Well, man, this has been good. We're 32 minutes into our 30-minute show, and we will see everyone next week. And what do we want to let people know about continuing the conversation or things they need to know between now and then?
I would say.
Did I stump you, Brad? With how do you continue the conversation?
Yeah,
it makes sense because we haven't really talked a lot about it.
Yeah. All right. So next week we're going to talk about what Mark just discussed. In the meantime, I say go out. Turn off the news tonight, cast your ballot, but don't sweat what happens because regardless of what happens tonight, we're all going to wake up tomorrow, put on our shoes, and get back to work. So be kind, work hard, take care of your business, and all will be well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been through many elections, and leading up to the elections, there's always a cadre of business owners saying, like, if the election doesn't go my way, it's over for me. And they're still there. So still there. I suspect for you, it'll be the same, even if it doesn't go your way. In the meantime, feel free to check us out, connect with us on LinkedIn. If you want to continue the conversation, I'm available, Mark Henderson Leary on LinkedIn, and Brad, you're available on LinkedIn as well.
I am Brad Freyer at LinkedIn. So come find me. Remember, next week, 30 minutes, 8:30 to 9 o'clock. We'll see you then. Have a great week. Happy selling. And be kind.
We'll see you next time.